Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. My name is Xochitl Ceguera with Moms Rising, Mamás con Poder. This message will be bilingual. Este mensaje va a ser bilingüe. We're really excited about you joining us for a celebration of the American Rescue Plan and Activation for the Future with Speaker Pelosi. The Care Can't Wait Coalition and experts who will share the information to help you get the benefits from it. If you need interpretation at any time, we're offering live English-Spanish interpretation in Zoom. Please look for the globe icon at the bottom. Click that globe and choose the language you wish to hear. If you do not see the globe, look for the three dots. Choose More or Interpretation, and then the language of your choosing. Thank you. Bienvenidas todas las personas a esta celebración del Plan de Rescate Estadounidense, en inglés, American Rescue Plan, con la líder y presidenta de la Cámara de Representantes, Nancy Pelosi, y expertos que compartirán información para ayudarle a saber cómo este programa puede beneficiar a su familia. Si necesita interpretación en cualquier momento, ofrecemos interpretación en vivo en inglés y en español en Zoom. Busque el icono o dibujo del globo terráqueo en la parte inferior. Haga clic y elija el idioma que desea escuchar. Si no ve el globo terráqueo, busque los 3 puntos, elija More o Interpretation y luego el idioma de su elección. Enseguida, los invito a ver un video celebrando los líderes de la coalición Care Can't Wait. Now, I'd like to invite you to join me in an opening video celebration with many of the leaders of the Care Can't Wait coalition. Thank you.
I'm Dawn Hucklebridge, Director of Paid Leave for All, and I am fired up by the growing commitment to care in the American Rescue Plan.
I'm Fatima Goss-Graves, President and CEO at the National Women's Law Center, and I'm fired up about the historic investment in child care in the American Rescue Plan.
I'm Tina Chen from Time's Up Now, and I'm excited about the American Rescue Plan because it makes the largest investment in child care assistance since World War II. It's a down payment, but it's a big one and more to come.
I'm Myra Jones-Taylor, the Chief Policy Officer at 0 to 3, and I am so psyched that the American Rescue Plan includes an expanded child tax credit and actual funding for the child care system. It's way, way overdue.
Hi, I'm Deborah Ness, President of the National Partnership for Women and Families. I'm fired up about helping women take care of their families without losing their jobs.
Hi, I'm April Verrett with SEIU, and I'm fired up about the increased funding for home and community-based services in the American Rescue Plan.
Hi, my name is Ai-jen Poo, and I'm the Director of Caring Across Generations and the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and I am fired up about all the ways the American Rescue Plan supports caregivers.
Champion U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, we're going to hear from the true experts on what the new benefits in the American Rescue Plan are and what they mean. Please join me in a warm welcome for Carmen Roberts with the SEIU and Rufina Rodriguez with the National Domestic Workers Alliance.
Hello, my name is Carmen Roberts. I live in Pasadena, California, and I'm a proud member of SEIU 2015. I've been a home care worker for about 15 years. The last 2.5, I've been caring for my almost 96-year-old aunt. Home care workers, most of us Black, Latina, and Asian women, have been on the forefront fighting two deadly pandemics, coronavirus and systemic racism. We've had to fight for every dime of support. The stimulus checks through the American Rescue Plan came just in the nick of time for many of my sisters and brothers in our union. Many lost hours during the pandemic, and some even lost their jobs and were running out of options to feed their families and pay the rent. Thanks to the $12 billion allocated for Medicaid, home and community-based services in the ARP, home care workers in California and across the country will be able to advocate for pandemic pay and better training. It also adds peace of mind that people won't lose services when they're needed most. It will also mean that people, especially those in underserved communities, are able to receive accurate information and outreach in their own language and get the vaccine. We are grateful that this HCBS funding recognized how essential home care workers are in fighting the pandemic. Now, here's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to center us, the Black, Latina, Asian, and immigrant women who do the bulk of caregiving work in our nation's economy. By treating care as the essential infrastructure it is, we can transform needed home care jobs permanently. It is our work that makes all other work outside the home possible. And we make the difference in supporting our nation's seniors and people with disabilities to live with dignity and independence at home and in our communities. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi, for your ongoing support of caregivers and working people everywhere, and recognizing care is essential. It always has been.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Rufina Rodríguez. Soy madre y limpiadora de casa y miembro de la Alianza Nacional de Trabajadoras del Hogar. He vivido en Filadelfia por 18 años. Antes de la pandemia, yo limpiaba entre 12 a 13 casas, pero cuando empezó la cuarentena en marzo del año pasado, no tuve trabajo y me quedé todo este tiempo en casa. No encontré trabajo hasta después del 4 de junio y solo tenía entre 3 a 4 casas para limpiar. Me afectó de muchas maneras, emocionalmente, económicamente. Mi esposo trabaja en un restaurante, también le cortaron sus horas. Él es diabético y más vulnerable al virus. Hicimos lo que podíamos para alcanzar los pagos. Durante la mayoría de la pandemia, mi familia y yo no calificamos para el cheque de estímulos del gobierno porque somos una familia de estatus migratorio mixto. Entonces no tuvimos la ayuda que muchas otras familias tuvieron durante este tiempo tan difícil. Pero ahora, con el presidente Biden y el plan de rescate americano, mi familia y yo tuvimos más ayuda financieramente y nos ayudó bastante. Les agradezco tanto por reconocer nuestra ayuda que las familias como la mía necesitan durante este tiempo. Ahora les pedimos que por favor crean un camino hacia la ciudadanía para las trabajadoras esenciales como yo. Hemos trabajado durante la pandemia limpiando sus casas, cuidando a sus hijos y ancianos. También merecemos vivir con la seguridad de estar en este país con nuestras familias sin miedo. Yo represento al sector del cuidado, la industria de más rápido crecimiento en este país. Necesitamos que nuestros trabajos sean buenos trabajos, que tengan protecciones laborales. Una parte crítica para crear buenos trabajos es crear un camino hacia la ciudadanía. ¿Por qué? nos crearía más seguro económico. Tener mi ciudadanía cambiaría completamente mi vida. Podría vivir sin miedo y tener un trabajo seguro y bueno ayudaría a mi familia bastante y también miles de familias a través de todo el país. Gracias.
Thank you, Carmen and Rufina. That was powerful and showed so clearly why this work is critical and how much your stories and our stories together help make history and help pass policies like the American Rescue Plan, which we're celebrating today. Speaking of celebrating, it's now my incredible honor to introduce and to celebrate a longtime champion for women, families, communities, and our economy, a person who has made history, a person who has been a champion for women and families by breaking through barriers and who has led the way forward. A leader who just made the passage of the American Rescue Plan, which is set to lift 50% of children out of poverty, a reality. Please join me in a warm virtual welcome and giant standing ovation for U.S. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you so much, Kristen. You engage in beautiful hyperbole all the time, and that I love to be introduced by you. But I return the compliment to you because you are awesome. You have made such a tremendous difference with your initiative, Moms Rising. You made such a difference in so many areas of the civic life of our country and the society that we want for our children. Let me join you in thanking Carmen and Rufina for their very important remarks. It is true, as Carmen said, that the work inside the home enables people to work outside the home. And that's why I usually say, as I will say on Saturday when I join Ai-jen Poo at the Care Can't Wait event, that you fuel the economy of our country. Take credit for enlarging the issue as big as possible because it is true. Let me say a couple things, and I know at the end of this session you'll be hearing from Kristen again, from Ai-jen Poo, from Fatima Goss-Graves, and the organizations that they represent, and others in the meantime. But I want to thank them for what they have done. Because you and the other organizations representing this call have made it happen. We do the inside maneuvering, the legislating, and the rest. But without the outside mobilization, it can't happen. You are the VIPs. You and the people that you represent, the constituencies who support you, make this all happen. And so this is, in the campaign, Joe Biden said help is on the way. Well, with this legislation, we say help is here. But help is here in a new and different, transformative, grander way than ever before, because it recognizes that we cannot crush the virus. We cannot improve the economy. We cannot put children safely back in school. We cannot send people safely back to work without the work that all of you do. And that's why this legislation is really based on what we had, the HEROES Act, passed last May, almost a year ago, last May. We didn't have vaccines then. So this legislation is much of that legislation, which you helped write, now adding the miracle of science and the vaccines. And so we want to crush the virus, vaccines in every arm, money in the pockets of all Americans, children safely back in school, as well as workers safely at work. Kristen is used to hearing me say at so many events that she has showcased the work of Moms Rising, that I say the three most important issues facing the Congress are our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, a clean, safe environment in which they can thrive, in a world at peace in which they can succeed. And those first three of those, their health, their education, the economic security of their families, are addressed in this legislation. The others in legislation to come. Our children, and they're safely going back to school, $170 billion in the package for that. Their health, oh my gosh, such a fortune spent, tens of billions of dollars on vaccines and testing, tracing, treatment, etc. very important to our children, including ways to expand access to healthcare at the ACA to make it more affordable. And I thank all of you for what you did to make the ACA exist and be saved from the assaults on it. Again, money in the pockets, taking, as Kristen said, that money to take children in poverty out of poverty. This is biblical in its scope and in its mission. But again, let me say again and again, you are the VIPs. You are the ones that make this happen. And I look forward to being, what we are a part of now is a massive teach-in. So as Kristen said, that people will know what the benefits are for them and how they can avail themselves of it. And if they don't, it's not a benefit. It's just policy. We want to translate it. Yesterday, I was in Chinatown talking about AAPI hate crimes, but also about vaccinations and how in that community we are culturally and linguistically appropriate in reaching out to communities previously underserved in terms of everything, but in this case, access to the vaccine and healthcare in general. Today we are together. Yesterday, though, that was part of at least 70 events throughout the country. All this week, members have been having events, 70 yesterday. Here we are today. Saturday will be Care. Can't wait again with Ai-jen Poo at her invitation, and wanted to be with her today and then. So this is a drumbeat. This is saying things are different. It's about you. It's about how we can meet your needs, and to talk about how we go into the future about building infrastructure, human infrastructure. We don't want to build infrastructure unless everyone can participate. Childcare, $45 billion in this bill, but we want more. We want more so that women can fully participate in building back better. We want to make sure that we have a workforce development so that many more people can partake of the economic and job opportunities. This next bill is a jobs bill. So with what we did now, the rescue and the infrastructure, the recovery. This is rescue, that's recovery. We want to make sure that we're all in a position to recovery with childcare, with proper training for everyone. And when we say childcare, we mean family care, whether it's an elder or a child. We want you in the workplace comforted to know that your families are well taken care of and that the caregivers are respected, that we treat them with dignity. Because as Rufina and Carmen have said, this is where we have to pay our respects for the work that caregivers give. We want to make sure that they are adequately paid and provided for in so many ways. I always like to tell the story because we've been having these hearings and workshops and everything over the years about respecting our caregivers. And one of them at the SEIU Center, one of our meetings, a woman got up there and she was a caregiver and she said, when these people complain about how much I want to charge them, I say, you may not think I'm worth this much, but don't you think your mother is? And that's the end of that argument. Nonetheless, it makes everything work for our society, for our individual families. And in this legislation, when we talk about healthcare, we include food as very important medicine for our children. We include housing and the comfort of home and the certainty of that as very important to the health and well-being of our children. So it has so much going for it, but it only means something if people take advantage of the child tax credit and the rest of that. So thank you all for what you do to amplify the message, to build this drumbeat, which will be a path to doing even more. And let us be very grateful and thank God for the elections. Not supposed to pray about politics, but thank God for Joe Biden, for the values that he has brought to this, the Biden-Harris administration, bringing values that we have fought for so long, but to do so in a way that is grand, that is transformative, that meets the greatness of our country and the needs of the American people so that they can fulfill their own personal greatness. Thank you all for being our VIPs, our very important people to make this all happen. And thank you, Kristen, for just being you. Over the years, you have just been a force of nature, as has Jen Poo. I mean, all of you, Fatima, and so many of you are remarkable to behold. Make us all very, very proud that when we legislate, it will translate into action for the people, for the children. Thank you so much. Thank you, Moms Rising, for bringing us together. Thank you, Sochi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. We needed that inspiration and we need this information. I'm so honored to be joined by all of you out there. I understand that there are thousands of people watching. And so we're glad that you're here to get this information because we also know that you're going to be a beacon to share this information. My name is Monifa Bandele, and I am the proud Chief Operating Officer at Time's Up, where we fight for fair, safe, and dignified workplaces. And I'm also a proud member of the Million Mom Strong powerhouse that is Moms Rising. And we're going to jump right into it because we're always being asked 4 questions. And we're going to start with the first one, which is to talk about how do I get my expanded tax credits and how do I access my stimulus check? So we're joined by one of our experts from the National Women's Law Center, Amy Matsui.
Thank you so much, Monifa. I'm Amy Matsui with the National Women's Law Center, and I'm here to tell you how to claim the refundable tax credits in the American Rescue Plan Act. There are 4 important tax credits in the Rescue Plan that you should be aware of. First, the child tax credit. The Rescue Plan increases the amount of the child tax credit to $3,600 per child under age 6 and $3,000 per child between the ages of 6 and 17. In addition, the Rescue Plan makes the child tax credit fully refundable, even for families with no earned income. And the Rescue Plan allows families to receive up to half of their child tax credit amount as 1 or more advance payments starting in July. These changes are for tax year 2021. Second, the EITC. The Rescue Plan makes the Earned Income Tax Credit more generous for working people who do not claim children for the credit. And it also makes more workers eligible for the credit. These changes are also for tax year 2021. Third, the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit. The Rescue Plan expands the Child and Dependent Care Tax Credit, which helps families who pay for child care to work or look for work. The Rescue Plan makes the credit refundable and increases the amount of the credit to $4,000 for 1 child and up to $8,000 for 2 children or dependents for tax year 2021. Finally, the Rescue Plan authorizes a 3rd round of economic impact payments, also known as stimulus payments, which are actually advanced tax credits. Families will receive payments of up to $1,400 per eligible person, including children and adult dependents. Importantly, these payments include individuals with Social Security numbers and mixed immigration status families. Some of these credits don't kick in until you file your taxes next year, but you still need to file your 2020 tax return by the May 17th deadline. It's the most important thing you can do, and here's why. It will ensure that you receive the full amount of any 2020 stimulus payments that you were eligible for. It will also ensure that you get the right amount of the stimulus payment from the Rescue Plan. The IRS may have already sent you a payment based on your 2019 tax return. But if your income dropped in 2020, you may qualify for a larger stimulus payment. If that's the case, the IRS will send you a second top-up payment once your 2020 tax return is processed. And filing your 2020 tax return will provide the IRS with information for advanced child tax credit payments in 2021. This may sound complicated, but help is available. The IRS-sponsored VITA program has trained volunteers who can help you file your taxes for free. You can check the IRS website to see if there's a VITA site open near you. You can also file your taxes for free online with support from IRS-certified trained volunteers at www.getyourrefund.org. Even though we're still filing our 2020 taxes, it's important to know what to expect for next year. To claim your tax credits and make sure you get the full amount of the stimulus payment from the rescue plan, you will need to file your 2021 tax return in early 2022. In the meantime, beware of scammers pretending to be the IRS. The IRS will never ask you for personal information like a social security number, bank account number, or credit card number over the phone, by email, text, or on social media. Also, stay tuned for more information about advanced child tax credit payments. The IRS is figuring out the details as we speak. And finally, keep track of any child care expenses you pay out of pocket. You will need to tell the IRS how much you paid for each child under age 13 or disabled family members in 2021 to claim the child and dependent care tax credit. I hope this will help you claim the refundable tax credits in the American Rescue Plan Act and put extra dollars back in your family budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy, for that valuable information. And so not only are we going to be able to access some expanded tax credits for children and get stimulus payments, we also have access to some child care benefits. And we all know that families across the country, especially during this pandemic, have been struggling around child care. So our next expert is Myra from 0 to 3, who's going to tell us how we actually get these child care benefits. Thank you so much, Myra Jones-Taylor from 0 to 3.
Hi there. Hi there. Thank you so much, Monifa. So I'm Myra Jones-Taylor. I'm the Chief Policy Officer at 0 to 3. It's so great to be with you. The American Rescue Plan made an historic investment in child care investments of $39 billion in additional child care funding. And this was in addition to the $10 billion investment enacted by Congress back in December. For families who are struggling to find affordable childcare, increased access to childcare subsidies might make the difference between being able to continue working or having to leave the workforce altogether, which we've seen so much this year. For providers, the additional funds they will have access to might mean the difference between being forced to close permanently, increasing our childcare supply crisis for sure, or remaining open to serve their communities. So we are incredibly grateful to Congress for providing this much needed lifeline to the childcare system. So what does this all mean for families and for providers? I'm going to give you some information here. First of all, we need to make sure that it's going to change. There's a variety of rules that will change state by state. So what we want families to do is first make sure that you are eligible for this benefit. And the way you can do that is by going to your, there's a Childcare Aware of America has an amazing website. You can go to childcareaware.org where you can get information to find out if you are eligible. It's also important for people to know that you can use this subsidy at any place you would like to go. It can include family, friend, and neighbor care. It doesn't just have to be at a child care center. That's very important for you all. We also want you to realize that this is something that you can use if you have lower income, but also if you are that has been waived for people who have are emergency workers. There have been some allowances there so that this can be expanded beyond the original eligibility system for families. The other thing we want people to know is for providers. For providers who are out there, there's information that we want you to have to make sure that you can also access this grant. First, one thing you need to understand is you do not originally have to be receiving a child care development block grant funding to be eligible for this new additional funds. You did not have to be a previously recipient of this. Awards will be determined based on operating expenses. So you can have, this includes additional costs associated with providing or preparing to provide services during the public health emergency. Also, this new legislation requires state lead agencies to operate a website to provide providers, to offer information to providers who apply for funds. Sorry about that. In addition to information above, providers must also certify that upon receipt of the funds and for the duration of the receipt of this fund that they will stay open. So you have to stay open to receive this, right? You also have to pay each employee their full compensation and benefits and not reduce compensation or involuntarily furlough an employee. You also have to provide co-payment and tuition relief, or you can do this to families enrolled in the program to the extent possible, giving priority to families struggling to make payments. And finally, providers who receive funds under the stabilization fund must use those funds for one of the following purposes. Stay with me here. Paying personnel costs, including premium pay for your employees, covering the cost of physical space. This can include equipment, rent, mortgage payments, utilities. Also purchasing PPE and cleaning supplies, making sure everybody is safe and healthy, and mental health supports for children and employees. Providers can also use funds to pay back expenses or debts incurred in response to the COVID-19 emergency prior to receiving funds. You can pay back things that you've paid for before. Before we close, it's a lot of information. You can go to the website to learn more, but before we close, we want to stress that this is a temporary benefit. We need to make sure that people use this now and that we make sure it is made permanent moving forward. We love working with you all, look forward to working with you all to make sure that we make that happen moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Myra. And this wonderful information is really key to members like the ones I'm going to introduce. We're going to hear briefly from Tori Snyder, who's a member of Moms Rising. And she is a parent who this information is really vital for. Tori?
Hi, I'm Tori Snyder and a member of Mom Rising. The paid leave for all is so important for people, especially single moms like myself. As a single mom going through the pandemic and having to worry if we get it, who takes care of my son, who takes care of me, and what do I do about work? Having assistance, a sense of community, and people who can understand to help us create a sense of care and community would be wonderful. Paid leave for all gives us the opportunity to be able to step away and take care of our families in their most urgent need, and also give us a sense of safety, a safety net that allows us to be the best parents, the best business owners, and the best community members we can possibly be.
Thank you for that. And Tori touched on a very key point, which is about jobs. During the pandemic, we know that not just hundreds, not just thousands, but actually 2 million moms have had to leave the workforce because of childcare issues and other child caring responsibilities. So we need to answer the question, how do we access our unemployment insurance? And so our next expert is going to tell us, how do we get those UI benefits? Next up is Andrew Stetner from the Century Foundation.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Stetner from the Century Foundation, and thanks for Moms Rising for putting this together and for all the fight you've done for working parents across the country. You know, this has been a crisis. 1 in 4 Americans have had to turn to unemployment benefits. Millions and more have been denied or delayed assistance, and 18 million are still out of work and on benefits. So thank goodness for the American Rescue Plan, which recognized that we are far from out of the COVID crisis and maintained historic benefits for unemployment benefits that are meeting the challenge of the moment. For those of you who are out of work and wondering about the American Rescue Plan, I'm happy to give you some information. There's many different programs for unemployment benefits, both federal and state, but the first stop for those programs is always going to be your state unemployment office. Because of the American Rescue Plan, individuals who are out of work for a long period of time can receive now up to 53 weeks of PEUC benefits if they're long-term unemployed. Many people don't qualify for traditional unemployment benefits, including those who have lost their job because they had to care for children. These workers can receive PUA benefits, and these were increased from 50 to 79 weeks and also go through September 6th. Regardless of what unemployment program you're on, you will receive $300 additional per week. Benefits in many states max out at only $250 per week. This additional money of $300 is critical. In most states, if you're already on unemployment benefits, in most situations, you will not have to reapply to get the extra weeks of benefits. You can simply just continue to file like you always had, and you should be getting the American Rescue Plan. In fact, there have been very little delays between the prior law and the American Rescue Plan. We had another huge victory in the American Rescue Plan. Unemployment benefits are usually taxable, and families face a huge surprise bill, thousands of dollars this year, even if they were not given the chance to withhold their taxes. The American Rescue Plan exempts the first $10,200 earned in unemployment in 2020 from any federal income taxes. And the good news is this tax saving should be largely automatic, even if you already had filed your taxes before the law passed. I want to say one more important benefit for the rescue plan that's just rolling out now, and you would have to apply for new. If you are someone who has both a regular job, but you're mostly a gig worker, you can get an additional $100 per week in unemployment benefits through a program called Mixed Earner Unemployment Compensation. You could get this program if you had worked in self-employment for at least $5,000 in the year before the pandemic, 2019. In these cases, you get an additional $100 per week in benefits if your main benefit is on the state program. There are some things I wanted to mention. Many people are getting a notice that their first year of unemployment benefits is expiring. In usual times, that is the limit for how long you could even get access to your unemployment claim. Most these benefits to the American Rescue Plan are in fact lasting longer, but there could be some overlap between a new year of state benefits and the PEUC benefits. The good news is if you hadn't worked at all, you don't need to take action and reapply for benefits. If you have worked, you may need to reapply, but the American Rescue Plan guarantees that your benefits will not be cut by $25 if you are forced to switch back into the state benefit program. In short, if your benefit year is expiring and you're getting notices and you have worked during the pandemic, look carefully. You may have to take action in order to continue your benefits. I don't want to take too much of your time, and so I will, stop basically there. But that is just a taste of what's happened in this bill. The Congress set aside $2 billion to help with the incredibly frustrating, I would call even excruciating, challenges and delays people that have been out of work have had to occur. I'm talking about websites that had crashed, an ability to talk to a person. We're going to start fixing that now and into the future. In addition, the bill provided many extensions for some of the smaller unemployment programs. This aid is locked in for 18 million people through September 6th. But I know with Moms Rising, we understand that this is not the end of the battle. We need to continue these benefits until the job situation improves for everybody and until this pandemic is finally under control. And we need to fix the UI program permanently so it's there with sufficient benefits when people need them in any crisis. And we're going to take the lessons we've learned here and make those changes occur with this great coalition that's assembled today. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And it's not lost on us that the crisis that we are in is one around health. So we really have to know how we can access all of the healthcare things that our families need, that we need. And so next up, we have an expert from the ARC. Nicole Jorwick is going to talk about healthcare and the ACA expansion.
Thank you. My name is Nicole Jorwick, and I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy for the ARC of the United States. Thank you to Moms Rising for organizing this important event. We are proud to be Care Can't Wait partners, and I'm happy to be here to talk about how to access the healthcare components included in the ARP and the new and unprecedented, at least for now, investment in home and community-based services that are vitally important to people with disabilities, aging adults, their family caregivers, and direct care workers. The COVID pandemic has highlighted the urgent need for healthcare coverage for adults and children alike. As people all over the country lost access to their employer-sponsored health insurance, the need for expansion of access was clear. For people with disabilities and aging adults, in addition to traditional healthcare, there's a huge need for other supports called home and community-based services, or HCBS. These services can include things like day programs for older adults and people with disabilities, employment supports, assistance with getting around the community, in-home support for personal care and assistance. The need for these home and community-based services was also highlighted during the pandemic, as HCBS are the alternative to the large congregate settings, such as nursing facilities and other institutions that were shown to be extreme public health hazards for people with disabilities and aging adults. The American Rescue Plan had several components to expand access to healthcare. First component is for traditional healthcare. The ARP included significant premium subsidies for people purchasing health coverage through the ACA marketplaces. The cost of coverage through the ACA marketplace was reduced for all individuals eligible for subsidies. Individuals making between 100 to 150% of the federal poverty level will pay no premiums. Eligibility for tax credit subsidies were also expanded for tax years 2021 and 2022. Households above 400% of the federal poverty line are now eligible for those subsidies. The ARP also provides eligibility for marketplace coverage for individuals who received unemployment compensation during 2021. The ARP also provided financial incentive for states who had not yet expanded Medicaid under the ACA. The ARP also provided a temporary incentive to those states to expand Medicaid of a 5% additional federal match or federal medical assistance percentage or FMAP to states to support that expansion. So an additional shot in the arm of federal funds to support states expanding access to Medicaid expansion. In order to learn more specifically about the ACA marketplaces, you can go to www.healthcare.gov, and you can go to the apply and enroll, and you can enter information about your state, other information about your income levels, and see what subsidies you qualify for. If you live in a state that has not expanded Medicaid, I also encourage you to work with state level advocates to bring in those additional federal dollars to your state. In addition to that traditional healthcare, there were also parts of the ARP that supports increased access to Medicaid, home and community-based services, or HCBS. The ARP included a significant federal investment in HCBS. Specifically, it included $12.7 billion for 1 year of funding to strengthen and expand access to home and community-based services. HCBS funding can be used to provide services to people currently on waiting lists, better pay for the direct care workforce, and to reopen programs, many of which have been closed for over a year. In order to learn more about the supports included in ARP for home and community-based services and how you can access them, if you have a family member who's a person with a disability or aging adult, make sure you know the home and community-based services that are available in your state, and you can go to www.medicaid.gov in order to learn more about the home and community-based services available. I also encourage you to work with advocates in your state to ensure that states are expanding access to home and community-based services as an alternative to those large congregate settings. Older adults want to age safely at home, and people with disabilities want to remain part of their communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I love the call to action around expanding Medicaid in your state. So please not only get this information, but connect with the advocacy organizations so that in your state, you can access what everyone in the other states are able to in terms of access to Medicaid. Well, when we talk about healthcare issues, the next step is always about leave, paid leave. And people want to know, can they still access pandemic leave? So we're going to talk to our next expert, Dawn from Paid Leave for All, about what we need to do to access that. So Dawn Hucklebridge.
Thank you, Monifa. And thank you too to Speaker Pelosi for your tremendous leadership always. I'm Dawn Hucklebridge. I'm Director of Paid Leave for All, and we are a growing campaign of organizations fighting to win paid family and medical leave for all working people in the United States. And we especially want to give thanks to Moms Rising, of course, and to all of our Care Can't Wait partners. And I especially want to say kudos to A Better Balance, who helped develop the legal summary we're about to share. And I want to say here's the too long didn't read version as well up front. Go to their website, A Better Balance, or call their helpline at 1-833-NEED-ABB, so NEED-ABB for any free and confidential legal assistance. So at Paid Leave for All, we want all people to have access to at least 12 weeks of paid leave to bond with a new child, to address a personal or family illness, or to handle needs that arise from a military deployment. The US is one of the only countries in the world that doesn't guarantee any form of paid leave, which meant that when this pandemic hit, we were unprepared. 4 in 5 workers had no access to paid family leave, and more than 30 million workers, particularly on the front lines, didn't have access to a single day of paid leave. But the good news is that one of the first things Congress did when COVID struck was to pass our first national paid leave policy of any kind in a historic bipartisan vote. So in March 2020, the federal government enacted the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA. This law gave millions of workers new rights to paid job-protected leave for a range of needs, paid for by the federal government through tax credits to employers. That emergency paid leave saved jobs and saved lives, preventing more than 15,000 COVID cases per day. It did expire in December, but Congress extended the tax credits for both employers and self-employed people through March 31st of 2021. And then in March, just of this year, President Biden signed, of course, into law the American Rescue Plan. Like the December package, that does not reinstate the employee's right to take paid leave from work, but it does provide tax credits to cover the costs of providing expanded emergency paid leave through September of 2021 to private sector employers with fewer than 500 employees, and to self-employed workers, and to state and local governments. The ARP also grants many federal and self-employed employees the right to emergency paid leave through September. At Paid Leave for All, our small business partners especially have shared what a lifeline these provisions were. According to Main Street Alliance member Marcia St. Hilaire Finn from Bright Start Early Care in Washington, D.C., having access to this paid leave meant I could continue to pay my entire staff, 18 people, even though they couldn't work because of the public health measures that we took. My employees collected their checks, and I could feel confident that making the right decision to protect others wouldn't mean that my employees would miss rent or food on the table. So here's what you need to know about the current law. Tax credits for employers are available for providing leave for a total of up to 14 weeks for workers who, number 1, have COVID symptoms and are seeking a diagnosis. Number 2, are subject to a quarantine or isolation order related to COVID. 3, have been advised to self-quarantine by a healthcare provider, need to care for their child because their health or childcare has been closed due to COVID. Perhaps they are caring for someone who is subject to a quarantine or isolation order related to COVID, are seeking or waiting for results of a COVID test or diagnosis due to an exposure, or finally, they're obtaining or recovering from a COVID vaccination. So again, that is a lot. It's a lot of expanded purposes that we are pleased about. And again, you can go to the Better Balances website and you can call their helpline for further guidance. But just a couple of things for employees. If your private sector employer has fewer than 500 employees, they're no longer required to provide paid leave. But if they do provide it for covered purposes, they can get that tax credit to cover that full cost. So if you have a covered need, one of the ones just listed above, you can ask about that leave and let your employer know about the tax credit. So in effect, they can choose to extend the FFCRA protections at no cost to themselves. Same goes if your employer is a state or local government. If your employer is the federal government, you may have the right to COVID-related paid leave from your employer. And for all employees, it's important to know that right now you may still have important rights under state or local paid leave laws. And again, you can call a Better Balances helpline at 1-833-NEED-ABB. Finally, for self-employed workers, you still have the right to tax credits right now to cover leave for these covered purposes. And the great news is that we have the opportunity coming out of this crisis to make meaningful reforms that will transform our policies and that will help people's lives. We look forward to working with leadership, with Congress, and with the administration to pass a permanent and a comprehensive paid family and medical leave law this year. We all have a stake in ensuring that people don't spread illness when they're sick, that no one ever has to choose between their family and a paycheck or their health and a paycheck. We need a sustainable paid leave policy in place so that families and businesses are never scrambling for piecemeal solutions if there's a caregiving need that arises or when a crisis strikes. If we want to build back better, paid leave has to be a part of our infrastructure and included in the economic recovery plan as key as roads and bridges to helping people get to work, to stay employed, to create an economy that is grounded in racial and gender equity. So we do believe at Paid Leave for All that we can and we must pass Paid Leave for All now. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dawn. It is time where we are getting to that point where we say, we did that. We did that. We were able to make sure that there is an expanded child tax credit. We did that. We were able to make sure that there were benefits for people to access childcare. We did that. We pushed time and time again, and even now, to save unemployment insurance. We did that. And we made sure that people have access to the ACA, to healthcare, that there's an ACA expansion. We did that. And we will continue to fight to not only make sure that we have enough pandemic leave for the duration of this crisis, this healthcare crisis, but that we have the right ongoing paid leave policies in place. And so it's time to celebrate. You heard 3 names earlier spoken by the speaker. You heard the name Aijan, you heard the name Fatima, you heard the name Kristen. And so we're going to bring them now to the stage to close us out, to give us some calls to action, and to also say loud and clear, we did that.
Thank you so much, Monifa. What an exciting and informative program tonight. So much news you can use. We organized tonight's program because we wanted to make sure you knew what was in the American Rescue Plan and how you can benefit. And special thanks go to our fearless speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and to Moms Rising and Kristen Rofinkbeiner for your incredible leadership. The American Rescue Plan and the American Jobs Plan that the president announced just last week are historic. What we've just been through has been devastating. The pandemic has turned our lives upside down, but the silver lining is that all the things that have been brought into the focus for us are leading the way, paving the way to real solutions that we've needed all along. It's helped us see all of the essential workers who've risked their own health and safety to keep us safe. And it's helped us finally acknowledge the need for childcare, for paid leave, and for home and community-based services for the elderly and people with disabilities. It has shown us that these programs and the workers who are the backbone of these programs are essential infrastructure to help us get back to work and to recover from this pandemic in an equitable and inclusive way. Care is infrastructure, and this is our time. And we want to invite you to join us, to get more involved and to stay involved. This Saturday, 2 days from now, April 10th, we're holding a national virtual summit, the Care Can't Wait Summit, to share our stories and to talk about how we win the childcare, paid leave, and home and community-based services that will build upon the American Rescue Plan and deliver the care that we need for the people that we love and help us get back to work, including support for care workers. Speaker Pelosi will be with us again, along with Vice President Harris and tons of special surprise guests. You just won't want to miss it. Join us, and you can sign up at carecan'twait.org now.
Thank you, Aijan, and thank you, Kristen, and to the speaker. And I am leaning into Monifa's message that we did that and we can do it again. The American Rescue Plan was and is historic, as you heard tonight. And one of the reasons it was historic is that it understood that the care economy had to be at its core. We've just learned so much from this pandemic, but especially just how essential care is to our economy, to our future, to the ability for women in this country to work and for all of our families to thrive. Even before the pandemic, though, we knew our care infrastructure wasn't really up to the task, and we have suffered so greatly for it this last year as women were driven out of the workforce and as families struggled to thrive. The rescue plan is delivering a plan to stop the bleeding. And it also, though, importantly reminded this country that we can deliver for people. I think that's what we'll see with the jobs plan, that we can deliver for people and that we don't have to go back to the way things were before the pandemic. We can name and acknowledge that care is essential. We can invest in childcare for every family who needs it. We can have a national paid leave program. We can ensure that people can access home and community-based services, and we can act with the urgency of today. And we can all gather together on Saturday again to say care can't wait. So thank you, thank you. And to our fearless leader, Kristen.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being a team of leaders, both in this Zoom room right now and of people who are listening and of everybody in the Care Can't Wait Coalition and, of course, with the Speaker of the House. I join the chorus of people saying we did that. Together, we have made monumental changes happen already. They were hard. They took over 230,000 constituent contacts just to help push the American Rescue Plan forward. Together, we passed a policy that will help lift half of all children out of poverty. Half of children could be lifted out of poverty because of a policy that we all work together, a team of leaders, both together in rooms and together in rooms across the country, did that. And together we are a needed, powerful force to make even more monumental change happen by pushing our nation to finally build that care infrastructure that lifts families, that lifts workers, and lifts our economy. That means prioritizing childcare for all, universal paid leave, and home and community-based services for people who are disabled and the aging, along with, importantly, living wages for all care workers. Just like we need to build bridges to drive on to go to work, we need to build a care infrastructure so people can go to work, so children and family members can thrive, and so care workers are paid living wages. We will not let any member of Congress forget that investing in a care infrastructure is both job creating and job sustaining. It's a win-win. So one thing we know together is not only did we do that, we can do even more. And we're going to do that even more together. We hope you join the summit this Saturday. You can go on Twitter or any place and just look up the hashtag #CareCan'tWait and find out information about how to RSVP for the summit. We also need you to reach out to your members of Congress. Text CARE, C-A-R-E, to 747-464 to reach your U.S. senators. And the other thing you can do, the really important thing you can do, is to spread the word about what's in the American Rescue Plan so that people can get the benefits that were passed. We want you to spread the word with friends, families, neighbors, colleagues. And we put all of the content that you heard today up on the Moms Rising blog at MomsRising.org/ARP. Again, MomsRising.org/ARP. Go there, share that information, and also please give the entire Moms Rising team a giant round of applause while you're at it. We'll also be sharing answers to common questions that we're hearing on that blog page and continuing to add information. As we close, and thank you for sticking with us, I want to give a giant, spectacular standing ovation to all the many organizations who's co-sponsored this event and are part of the Care Can't Wait Coalition, including the ARC, CLASP, 0 to 3, National Women's Law Center, Paid Leave for All, Closing the Women's Wealth Gap, National Domestic Workers Alliance, National Alliance to End Sexual Violence, National Council of Jewish Women, Caring Across Generations, United State of Women, Time's Up, Women's March, Supermajority, SEIU, We Demand More Coalition, Parents Together Action, Ultraviolet, National Partnership for Women and Families, Coalition of Labor Union Women, Family Values at Work, Moms Rising, and Mamas con Poder. Again, we are a team of leaders. Together, we are superheroes. We can make the change that everyone needs happen in the United States of America, and all it takes is you adding your voice to the thousands of other people who are joining with you in demanding change in a care infrastructure across the nation. I'm so excited about what we can do and build together. Thank you to everyone for being on today. Thank you for all each of you are doing and will do to build a nation where everyone can truly thrive. Good night and goodbye.